All right, another edition of Riding Home. We're going to do this one live. We're going to be with y'all for maybe about 30 minutes. We're going to get through a lot of this SEC schedule just to as it goes. The link is already up on Dog Post for Georgia's 2024 schedule. ESPN is already revealing week 2. We already know Georgia and Clemson are playing one another at the start of the season. And Ryan, the biggest thing today was that Georgia and Alabama. Ryan Curley joined me. Ryan, we know now Georgia and Alabama will be a primetime matchup on ABC Saturday night, the 28th of September. That'll be a huge matchup between Georgia and Bama.
Hey, that's what you get with all the changes in college football. That is one of the things that we're getting. I know that people don't like how there's so much change at once, but one of the positives is you're going to get a lot of games like these where you're going to get Alabama and Georgia at 7:30 in October. You're going to get or September, whenever it is, and the next month you're going to get LSU versus Oklahoma and stuff like that. But that's a huge, huge, huge matchup. I mean, was that the most watched matchup all year? Was the Alabama Georgia, or did anything
So,
beat that out?
Michigan, Ohio State was slightly more watched, but the there when those two meet, there's no more visible. It's the biggest game in college football. So there's no question that Georgia and Bama, with their over 100 and it's up on the site right now. Let me read you this paragraph, Ryan, about what Georgia, Alabama, and Georgia are two of the three most watched teams in college football. Alabama had 70 million total viewers this year. Georgia just under 65 million. They are the second most watched game in the sport since 2012. 134 million people have watched Georgia play Alabama. Ohio State, Michigan is at 143, and they play every year. That shows you how big a game this one is.
It's look, and especially when it's on a neutral field and at a venue like Mercedes-Benz Stadium,
Yeah.
sometimes it just feels like football can't get much better than what's in front of you, at least on the collegiate level. I mean,
Well, I mean,
when it's
and
Alabama,
those two. I mean, there's
it,
not a lot
it,
of there's
it
not a
just
lot of teams
doesn't
better
it
than those
doesn't
two.
get better than that. The matchups are almost always dramatic. They've almost always meant something really huge. I mean, that's a lot of because they play each other in the postseason a lot. But these regular season games, it's from a football perspective, it's tough for both teams when you've got to face really good teams. But I mean, just from a storyline perspective, this is Kirby Smart versus Nick Saban, and this game has meant a lot, and it's led to championships.
Yeah.
It's led to championships, and it might lead to another one here in a few weeks. I mean, that would continue the trend of the winner of that game going on and winning more important games after it.
Yeah, there's no doubt that the winner of this game since 2020 has gone on to win the national championship. So, Georgia and Bama have played in 20, 21 a couple times, and then 23. And the winner of the game has won the national championship in 3 of the 4 last previous years. So it's just what it is. I think it's, and the other thing I'm seeing here, as we're 4 weeks into this thing, if you've not already picked up on it, we've already got this story out on Dawg Post, so you can go check it out on dawgpost.com. But Georgia will play Clemson to start the season, as we all know and have known for some time. Then they're going to play they're going to play Tennessee Tech, Ryan, on the 7th. And then Kentucky, the 14th. Comments about that game.
About which one in particular?
Georgia playing at Kentucky a
Okay.
week before a bye week, which is when
Yeah,
they will
that's the
take on
thing
Alabama, of
is,
course, later that week.
yeah, as tough as this is, as many tough road trips there are for Georgia, there's only one back to back, and that comes in November where they've got to hit the road 2 weekends in a row, and that's because of this September 21 bye week. I think that's very beneficially placed for Georgia, the way
Sure.
that the schedule shook out, because you have to go up to Lexington and then you get a break before you go to Tuscaloosa to reset. And I'm sure the 2 bye week deal, coaches, players, everyone's going to appreciate that when you're dealing with injuries, when you can take a little bit of a breath, right, as a human being, where it's not as go 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 all the time. There's at least a touch of a break. And that comes at the perfect time. Does Alabama have a bye the week before Georgia? Is my question to that, because that's good for Kirby Smart. That's an extra week of preparation.
Well, it's going on as we go here. On the 28th, Georgia Bama. Let me keep rewinding to the 21st. The 21st, I don't see Alabama with a game. I believe, yeah, Alabama and Georgia are both off that week. And I mean, listen. By the way, people kind of complaining about Alabama's situation. Alabama has a very difficult schedule. They play at Oklahoma before the Auburn game. They have Georgia. They have, I believe, they have LSU. They have a slew of very difficult games. They play at Wisconsin, so they're kind of getting out of their safety zone by playing a game like that. Alabama has tried to do games like that, Ryan, but they've not done them a lot. So your reaction to September, you've got Georgia Clemson to open, and then a gimme game, and then they go to Kentucky. So, and then they have an off week, and then they play Alabama. So again, now this is hold on 1 second. So you got Atlanta, and you've got a home game in Athens. Then you go to Kentucky. You have an off week, and then you go to Alabama. That's not a lot of Athens. Our friends at Red Zone are going to be missing the crowds in September.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. But isn't this what everyone wanted? I, I thought you wanted to see Georgia play all these great teams at the beginning of the year. What happened to Ball State and UT Martin? I thought that's what the complaint was about. Just none of those are at home. So that's I mean, when you talk about Clemson, Kentucky, and Alabama, that's the tough part for Georgia, just as much so as playing really, really good teams.
It's curious.
Brock Vandagriff against Kentucky too. That's another little element of this.
Brock Vandagriff. Yeah, I mean, it's great. I think it's great that Brock gets a chance to get out there and be a starting quarterback in the SEC. He's going to be, he's still raw. He's never started a college game, but he will have his shot to start. Well, Kentucky will play South Carolina the week before they play Georgia, so they'll at least have that to get ready. I do not know who Kentucky opens with, but the week that Georgia plays Mississippi State on October 12th, as you've seen on Dawg Post, is the week that that Texas, Oklahoma, Carolina, Alabama, Florida, Tennessee. If Georgia's not going to play on ABC, it's very possible they don't play Mississippi State on, because this is a very good weekend. Texas, Oklahoma, Florida, Tennessee, Ole Miss, LSU. If you're looking for a week where Georgia's not going to play on, ABC, it's going to be that one. And then let me follow it up, Ryan, by saying the week after that, on the 19th, you got Georgia, Texas. That's the same day as Tennessee, Alabama, which I think would be the primary competitor to a night game there. So Georgia, Texas will be on ABC. My question is it going to be at 3:30, or is that going to be a night game for Alabama at Tennessee? The other thing, folks, before you say anything, are going to have to get used to, Ryan, there's going to be a lot of big night games from here on out. In the SEC, that used to not be the case. You had better be ready for night games.
Yeah, and that bodes well for some of these programs and fan bases. People love night games.
Okay.
I don't know. For us, we love night games, but we also hate night games.
Yeah, we hate them
so
too.
There's a love-hate relationship, I think, for media with night games, but more electric crowds. I mean, were you bringing that up as almost a negative? I think that's something people are going to love. I know that the 3:30 time slot has been classic for the SEC, but I think that fan bases will rally around that. And you think about LSU, they want those games to be at night, and they're going to get more of them now.
Well, they're not the only ones. I mean, you're going to have Georgia. The only game. I'm having to answer my wife on text here. Sorry. The only game that folks should not get too jazzed up about it being a night game is Georgia, Florida. I just don't. That just won't be at night. That would be different for that to happen. Something would have to change, Ryan, for that to be the case from the institutions.
Okay. Yeah, but I mean the 3:30 thing, that's out the window. That's not maybe for that game it sticks, but those rules are gone. And you're going to just see all these matchups. Oh, Georgia's playing Texas. That's at night because that is the game of the weekend. And they want all the eyeballs on that, on ABC. with that
these
number one broadcast crew.
yeah, these games are going to be there are going to be several situations where you're going to have triple headers. So, you know, Georgia Mississippi State could be the noon game, and then you spill into Tennessee Florida, and then Alabama. I can't remember the schedule. The thing about these games is, and by the way, Texas plays Georgia the week at home, the week after they play Oklahoma. Okay, so I don't know that this schedule is as bad. It's difficult, but I'm not so sure this schedule is as bad as people think it's gonna be, Ryan. I mean, if you're Texas and you're back to back as Oklahoma and Georgia, the likelihood of you winning both those games, I would say, is not high.
That's the overarching point here. It's going to be really hard for everybody.
Yep.
It's not just going to be hard for Georgia. And then think about it in this sense. No one, I mean, you don't want to play Georgia? It people have Georgia on their schedule. Georgia doesn't have Georgia on their schedule. So
Well, they have
they've got to
Alabama.
go from a back to back. They've got to play Oklahoma, and then oh no, Georgia's coming to town. So yeah, I think you kind of have to flip it around with that perspective as well. Alabama's not just going to get scot free either, or Mississippi State. Everyone is going to have to deal with these things because there's 16 teams now, and the two additions here are very strong additions when you look across the country. Historically and somewhat recently, Oklahoma's not as good as it was a few years ago. It's still a good football program, possibly trending in the right direction. We'll see. Texas obviously trending in the right direction when you make a college football playoff and have a chance to win a national championship. But that's the thing. It won't be tough for everyone. Some people are going to get a double home, two home games in a row. It's going to shake out and even out over time. But that's kind of my counter argument that says too. Texas got to deal with the emotion of playing Oklahoma, that rivalry, and then just Dogs are going to travel to Austin, man.
They're,
It's
they're,
that's going to be quite the environment over there.
I think Texas is certainly. I mean, this has been a great season for the Longhorns. They can win the national championship, but baby, I'm gonna tell you something right now, baby. This is what we've been talking about now. You want to come into the league? There's only one league. There's other
Hmm.
conferences. There's only one league, and that's the SEC. Okay, and you want to come into the league. Well, this is what it is now, and it's for everybody. It's not just Texas, but Texas is new to this. This will take a little bit of time, to be honest with you. Uh, but I have to say, for Georgia, if you break this down by the months, okay, Ryan, you've got Clemson in August, at late August, Alabama in late August, Texas in mid to late October, the Gators the weekend after Halloween, and then I don't know who will be the most challenging game in November. It might be at Ole Miss, but you've got Ole Miss, Tennessee, UMass, and then Tech. This, I'm just going to say off the cuff here, this is a challenging schedule, but Georgia can certainly get through this thing with one loss, and I don't think it's out of the question they go undefeated. But I just realize, you have to live in reality, which is this challenge. I mean, that you play Alabama, that Alabama plays Georgia. So, I mean, obviously someone has to lose. It's a zero-sum game, and then the game at Texas. But this road schedule is complicated, but it's not unmanageable, to be honest with you.
It's not. In a way, that November schedule favors them being
Oh, no
able to
question.
three home games to end the season. One of
No
them being
question.
against UMass, one of them being against Georgia. All three of those games. I'll tell you right now, Georgia should win those games.
Yes.
We don't even know what these final rosters are or anything, but I'm telling you right now, Georgia's going to be better than all three of those teams, and that's going to be a good reset when it's not the stress and the intensity of playing. Um,
It is
just a
curious to
really
me. I'm cutting you off
Go ahead.
right now. Only let me say this because they've announced Georgia Florida for the second, which we knew there was a contract a year ago about that game. They don't have a time, which if you look at this game, here's this weekend. Okay, you've got Georgia Florida, Ole Miss Arkansas, Vandy Auburn, Kentucky Tennessee, A&M Carolina, Maine at Oklahoma, and then UMass Mississippi State, Alabama LSU, Mizzou, and Texas are all off. I listen. That game's not going to be at night. I've had too many people at Georgia say that they just don't. But people that control that, it's not Georgia and Florida necessarily. It's Disney, and Disney will put that game where they want to put it, so that there's no time. I don't think that's a huge red flag that that game's at night. No, Georgia and Florida want that game at 3:30. Okay, I'm just saying they didn't put the time up, and so I don't know who else had got Disney in that position. They could have that could be Clemson, Florida State at night. That could be Notre Dame, Florida State. I don't know. I don't know who's that week,
Yeah,
but
because it's
no,
it's
no
not
one's
going
going
to
to
be
draw like
the
Georgia, Florida.
SEC. Yeah, sorry, it's not going to be the SEC every single week that they place
It's
there. I
going to
mean,
be
it
probably
could be.
of the 14 weekends. I would imagine it'll be at least 10 of them that will be
Yeah,
primetime
but
SEC.
they're going to want to slip in some other conferences if there are some real marquee matchups. But why do you say Georgia and Florida wanted at 3:30 so bad?
Because I've talked with a lot of people through the years, and I backed that up recently. The schools, the schools, ESPN had that game once and put it at night. That was in 2002. That's the only time that Georgia and Florida did not play on CBS. It's the only time that CBS did not pick them at the beginning of the season. So ESPN said, "Hey man, this is awesome. This is one of the marquee games in college football. We're gonna put it on at night," and it was a train wreck after the game. It was just a disaster. Now we leave that stadium at what 10, 9:30, 9.
We got out quicker this
Yeah,
time.
it's not the end of the world when we leave it, but I'll just say I don't know. Putting that game at night, I'll believe it when I see it. I'll put it to you that way. Let me just get this in real quick. Hey, listen, it's Christmas. Get this while you can. I'm going to run out. These are Stetson Bennett-Signed double dogs. The link is down below. Running out. You've been warned. LSU, LSU, Alabama will be at night. So here we are. This is a curious week right here, which is week 12, November 16th. Tennessee, Georgia at night. And Tennessee, Georgia. Will this game be at night? I don't know. Because you got Texas, Arkansas, you got LSU, Florida, Tennessee at Georgia. Missouri, South Carolina sounds cute and everything, but no. But the last weekend
No
of
one was seriously considering
so
that one.
we know the schedule now, and let's just go through it very quickly with you, Ryan. I'll read it off, and then we'll just make comments. Again, this is over on Dawg Post, and again, I am not going to have I have fewer than 10 of these. Get them now. And by the way, get them now so I can mail them to you and not stress out about Christmas. Georgia, Clemson, in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Tennessee Tech, I've said that twice now tonight, in Athens. Then they go to Kentucky on week 3. There's a bye week. Then Georgia, Bama on the 28th. Probably the biggest game of the season that's not Alabama. That's not Ohio State, Michigan. Georgia, Auburn, the week after Georgia, Bama. Mississippi State, those games are both in Athens. So Deep South's oldest rivalry, Between the Hedges on the 5th. Then State comes on the 12th. Then Georgia visits Texas the week after the Horns play the Red River rivalry. Week off, Gators. And then you've got the closing stretch of 4 games that Georgia should win them, but let's just see what happens with Ole Miss. They play at Ole Miss on November 9th. They play Tennessee at home on the 16th. And then they go the double header here with UMass and Georgia Tech to close out the season. They're going to have 3 games at the end of the year in Athens. They have at least 1 game in every single month of the season in Athens, but only 1 in September in Athens. Anyway, your global thoughts on this whole thing?
It's going to be really hard to go undefeated. I think when you look at that September 28th matchup at Alabama, that looks like the most likely loss. If you look ahead, I would say that's a more likely loss than at Texas at this point in time, just because I think Alabama is going to be really good again next year. Right. And I feel the same way about Georgia, but, Alabama's going to retain enough to where, and Georgia will retain a lot of talent as well, to where they should have some solid momentum. But it's hard. Like they say over and over how hard it is to win on the road, how hard it is to win on the road in this league. And you're talking about going to Alabama. It's tough to win over there. And Georgia played well over there in 2020 for a half. And that could happen again. If I had to predict right now, I would predict Alabama wins that game, but we're so far from that. We don't know a lot yet. Looking through it, I think it's good for Georgia for it to be tougher at the beginning, because it just when the season trickles on and there are injuries and wear and tear and you're
It's
missing key guys against really important, you'd rather be missing a key guy against UMass or Georgia Tech than against Texas or Alabama if one of those got slotted there in November, which can totally happen one day. Maybe I doubt that a little bit, but the schedule makers can arrange it however they see fit. And this is a tough one, but the thing is, it's going to be tough for everybody. It's going to be tough for everybody. And Georgia, like we were going to harp on over and over, it should be really, really, really good again. It should be a
it will be.
contender. Should be a contender. It's going to be a contender every year if Kirby Smart's doing what he's doing.
Yeah, I'm just looking at everybody else's schedule as the TVs are that way. I really should turn this monitor one of these days for everybody to see in my office. Of course, it's a disaster zone over there. But look, there's no game on this schedule Georgia can't win. There probably are two games where they're going to be underdogs. I'm not sure totally that they'll be an underdog at Texas. Let's just see. But yeah, I think you don't want to overdo it with any of these games. That's one thing I would say is, you know, Georgia. Looking at Auburn, man, they're playing. They go Arkansas, Oklahoma, at Georgia, at Missouri. I mean, are they going to survive that? Are they going to survive that schedule? That is brutal for Auburn.
Yeah,
I mean
it
that's
is.
tough. The end of their season's not that bad, but man,
Yeah.
that's just a train wreck right there.
Going back to something, we ended up talking about something else afterwards, but you mentioned, with Texas and Oklahoma coming over, how will they deal with it? You've got to deal with this now. It's not Kansas State and Texas Tech and Kansas. You've got to deal with Georgia,
You're
Bama,
full. You're full
LSU.
on hating. I get it.
I'm not full on hating. I'm full on truthing.
Okay,
It's
so hold on, Captain Truth. Here we go. So here's Texas, Colorado State at home. They go to Michigan, so that'll be the Fox game. So they go to Michigan week 2. They play Texas San Antonio, Louisiana Monroe. So that's it. All their 4 games. Then they go 8 games in a row in the league, bro. Mississippi State open date. Rivalry against Oklahoma, Georgia at Vandy open. Gators at home at Arkansas, Kentucky at A&M. They better watch that close of that schedule. They can lose those games. Now, they probably should not.
whoa.
But when you're playing, are you playing music for some reason?
I did not mean to do that.
What? When you got 2 rivalry games out of the last 3 games of the season, which is at Arkansas and at A&M. And whether Texas realizes it or not, Arkansas is a rivalry for them. And then they got a bunch of pissed off Aggies and jealous Aggies at the end of this thing. That is a challenging schedule for Texas.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I mean, they can lose to Michigan, Oklahoma, Georgia. I don't know that they'll lose any of those 3 games, but that's tough. And then, I mean, they did lose to Oklahoma this season. And then, Florida, we'll see. I doubt they lose that game at home. They go to Arkansas, who is not great, but who can fight with anybody. They host Kentucky. That's not going to be fun. And then they go to A&M. They should win those last 3, but boy, this is a challenging schedule for Texas. 9-3 is not the end of the world, by the way, for this one.
No, it's not, especially when you have to go up to Michigan at the beginning of the year. That's going to be a physical football game. It's going to be tough. That's not one that you want
No.
at the beginning. It's definitely.
Well, maybe it is though,
For
Ryan.
me, yeah.
We've entered a new world here. So one thing I would say is if Georgia gets a split with Texas and Alabama, they're probably in the playoff. They win one of those games, they're probably in the playoff. They win the rest of their games, they are probably in the playoff, even if they lose those 2. 10-2 probably gets you into the playoff these days.
Yeah, because you don't have to win the league. And the thing is, you might not have to go to the SEC championship
Correct.
either. I mean, this year's 12-team playoff would have had 4 SEC teams.
Yes. Next year, I mean, so it would be Texas, Bama, Georgia, Missouri, and probably Ole Miss.
Ole Miss is 11. They would have made it into this year's 12 team.
That's 5.
Yeah. So
Now,
5
what we
including
don't Here's the email from the league, and I will just kind of take a look at it. And I got it by the for the Gators, man, they're gonna go Miami. They're gonna go Miami at home, Sanford, and then they host A&M. They go to State. They're open again, and then they play Central Florida, which is a dumb decision. I'm not even going to start talking about that. Then they go to Tennessee, Kentucky. Week off before the gate. Oh man, this close is tough. Week off before Georgia. So they got the Dogs. They play at Texas. They host LSU. They host Ole Miss, and then they play at the Knolls. It was fun, man. It was fun while it lasted, Billy Napier. Oklahoma, host Temple,
Oh
host
man.
Houston, host Tulane, and then they host Tennessee 4 in a row at home. They go to Auburn, week off before the Horns. Then they host Carolina. They play. I hadn't talked. I'll get to Carolina in a minute. They host Carolina. They go to Ole Miss. They play Maine. I don't know what's going on there. And then they got at Mizzou, a game they can lose. Open before they close with Alabama and LSU. Welcome to the league. South Carolina. They play UTC. They play UTC the week before. They play NC State and Charlotte. They play Kent State, and then they go Oklahoma, week off, at Arkansas. Then they host the Gators and Bama. That's probably the best back-to-back South Carolina Williams-Brice has ever seen. And they got a week off before Kentucky State at Georgia. This was I misspoke. This is Tennessee, UTC versus NC State and Charlotte. Kent State at Oklahoma, week off, and then at Arkansas, Florida, Bama, week off, Kentucky State at Georgia, UTEP, Vandy. That is not that bad of a schedule, Ryan. They can survive that. Tennessee.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it seems like theirs is one of the more lenient ones when you look around the country. And they'll be transitioning. Is Joe Milton? That was year 6, right? He's out.
I believe he has expired his.
They'll be transitioning to a new quarterback. I don't know, man. Tennessee, I just feel like things got real tough for Tennessee here with Texas.
I think one thing when you think about this league is you've got your upper echelon, which I will include Texas in this for the time being at least, but we know Georgia and Alabama are up there. Is the upper echelon teams who have gone to the playoff, Ryan, or is it teams who have won the national championship?
Teams that have gone to the playoff, but LSU hasn't been as consistent as Bama in recent years.
How about we say teams with their current coach who have gone to the playoff?
Yes.
Okay. So that'd be 3 people right now. And Texas certainly can win the national championship, by the way. You've got that group. And then you've got the group below that. Is Tennessee in that group? Is Tennessee in there with Oklahoma, LSU?
Right. I'm less convinced to put them there, I think, than other people.
This is a challenging moment for the so-called middle of the league. If you're at the bottom of the so-called bottom of the league, if you're, I hate to be like this, if you're at this point, South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Kentucky, State, you at least can score some upsets and do some things. But this league, man, this is just brutal. I mean, early 2000s Georgia would have a real hard time with this schedule. Now, Alabama wasn't what they are now, but you could just substitute them for Florida back in the day, and you see what you're dealing with. This league is brutal. And, that Texas playing Michigan that's the other thing, Ryan, is a lot of these games may be in good moments. I mean, I don't know that Georgia's got a lot to gain by playing Clemson this season, but they'll play them nonetheless. That game is a total afterthought.
It is, and part of that is on Clemson for having the last couple seasons that it had. Otherwise, people would be looking at this game as a huge marquee matchup for the season, but it will be an afterthought because the moment that game's over, people are going to be moving on and looking forward to that SEC schedule. That's more on Clemson than anything else. So that's.
Well, I do wonder. Can you bludgeon yourself to death after a while with some of these schedules? I mean, Michigan, Clemson, Alabama's playing at Wisconsin, which is not the same thing, but still, there's a lot.
Those teams will be, Alabama will have some that are going to be extremely tough. Maybe it's not Wisconsin, but that will come. And
Here's
that's what this Clemson game is. This Clemson game, I guess, is Texas's Michigan in a way, as far as playing it out of conference at the
yes.
beginning of the year, different circumstances. But I mean, when that game was scheduled, these teams were. I mean, when was that game scheduled? A few years
I have
back?
no idea. Yeah.
Not too long ago. It was scheduled thinking that it was the top five matchup that it was 2 years ago. You know, that's what we're getting. But that's not what Clemson is right now, and so that it does make it much
Well, you
easier
can't.
to move ahead.
Let me go through some of the non-conferences at the beginning of the season, okay, for everybody in the league. For Bama, I'm not going to talk about South Florida. They go to Wisconsin. Arkansas goes to Oklahoma State. Auburn hosts Cal. Miami goes to the Gators. Georgia, Clemson, we already talked about. Kentucky, I'm not seeing a lot of real tough there at the beginning of the season. LSU has USC in Vegas week 1. That will be a lot of fun. Ole Miss is gonna not the same. Ole Miss is gonna go to Wake. Mississippi State, they're gonna go to Arizona State. Mizzou, they're hosting Boston College. Oklahoma's got a bunch of gimmies, but they wouldn't. Maybe this is the wrong way to put it. They got Houston and Tulane. They can't lose those games, I don't think. But they're both, Houston. I don't know. South Carolina, I'm not seeing a lot of difficulty here with South Carolina. They got Wofford, Clemson, Old Dominion, and Akron. For Tennessee, they've got NC State and Charlotte. For Texas, they've got Michigan. For Texas A&M, they've got Notre Dame. And for Vanderbilt, they host Virginia Tech. Vanderbilt's home schedule is Virginia Tech, Alcorn State, Alabama, Ball State, Texas, and South Carolina and Tennessee. So I've seen worse, home
A lot of
states for
highs and
Vandy.
lows there. A lot of
Yeah,
highs and lows.
I'd buy that. Think about it. You got Virginia Tech, Alabama, Texas, South Carolina, and Tennessee. I mean, I don't know, but everybody's playing these away or these non-conferences now because it's not that big of a deal if you lose. Georgia's non-conference is 2 ACC teams and then 2 sort of gimme teams.
Yeah. Well, the margin of error is a little bit thicker now too.
Much.
It's widened because now you can lose 2 games and make the college football playoff. Now you can lose 2 games and not even play in the conference championship, make the college football playoff. So that is the one thing about it that I don't like is it will slightly devalue the regular season games, but because it's not a huge the games are going to be played as if they all matter. That's not going away. It won't be like the NFL where you really could just lose a handful of games. The margin for error is thicker than it was, but it's still very, very slim. But no, you won't feel like in the pressure if you lose to Alabama in September, the pressure won't be as heavy as if it was this past season as it would have been if that happened in September. Because then it's not, oh, we have to win out. We have to win out or it's over. There is one more, and probably in some cases, in some years, 3. So,
but do you think that, for instance, do you think that the Eagles Cowboys games are less nuts? Because it doesn't seem like it. They seem pretty
no,
nuts. I think Georgia Florida will continue to be,
it's still gonna be nuts because there's the part that's the rivalry of it all. I mean, that
exactly.
all didn't disappear. Maybe some rivalries are disappearing because of realignment and everything, but as far as the SEC goes, that's intact. That
I
didn't
would
change.
I would I would be
And then we're
concerned
gonna
though.
get to see new ones with Texas and Oklahoma.
Yeah, I would be concerned if I'm South Carolina. If we're talking about sort of rivalries or where we fit into the league, I would be concerned if I were South
Yeah,
Carolina and I were,
yeah.
Well,
It, I mean, yeah.
let me just
It
say this. I
feels
mean,
like
they
just
were
ladder
not
stuff.
happy that they didn't get Georgia. Now their home schedule is pretty not good. I mean, they host Old Dominion, they get LSU, which is a big game, but nobody cares. I mean, no one in South Carolina cares about LSU. Akron, Ole Miss at home, A&M, Missouri, Wofford. That's one of the worst home schedules, and they're a program that needs to sell tickets. They're like Tennessee, so that's a challenging situation for them. They are going to make certain that they get Georgia in 25. I would imagine that game would be in Columbia. But I think the other thing that needs to be remembered here, Ryan, and thanks to everybody for watching. Make sure you're signing up for our newsletter. The link's right down below. Is that this is a one-off schedule. There's no in 25, I don't think this will happen, but in 25, you could have, you know, a 9-game schedule. I do not think that will happen because I do not think the SEC will get paid more from Disney. Just not a reality right now. In 25, you could get sort of pods working. I mean, there's no shortage of things that could happen in the near future here, man. But just because something's happening in 24 doesn't mean it's going to happen in 25 and beyond. Hey, I see Rob Bailey. I appreciate that, man. We owe you one there. Go ahead, Ryan.
Oh, I'm not seeing these comments. I
You
don't
can't
have
see
them.
it, yeah.
I don't have them pulled up. Um, I mean, it's going to be harder for everyone. For those middle tier teams that would have a year where they slip into the SEC championship, that's over. I mean, that's over. You have to be really, really, really good to make the SEC, which you already did. But with the divisions being out of play and you only having to be better than a handful of teams, now it's the entire league you got to be better than. And so it's hard to see in Arkansas where, it's hard to see them almost ever making the SEC championship, right? I mean, I know
The
that that's
championship
not,
game?
yeah, and obviously, how it was rare that we saw South Carolina in the SEC championship. It was rare that we saw Missouri in the SEC championship or whoever, but it feels like that's going to be even more rare.
It won't
Am I
happen.
wrong?
I mean, I think that there's good and bad here if you're Carolina, Missouri, or if you're a not great
If you're
Georgia.
just not one of the top
Yeah,
programs that is consistently up there.
But look, like let's just take this as South Carolina and Tennessee. There are going so Tennessee is not at the level of Georgia or Bama right now. They're just not. But that doesn't mean they can't get into the playoff. So what I
No,
would
no, yeah.
right.
But to
So
win the league, I guess.
the SEC championship will be devalued to some degree, but it's been devalued for some time. Alabama did not win they won the national championship in 2012. They did not win the SEC championship.
Yeah.
Excuse me, in 2011 they did not do that. So Georgia didn't win it in 21. Alabama didn't win it in 17. They didn't win it in 11. So there's been times when the conference champion has been irrelevant as it relates to the national champion. I think what's going to happen, though, is if you're playing in that game, it really does matter if you win the SEC championship game because you won't play a game, and the other guy
Yeah.
will, and
Yeah.
that's going to matter.
Yeah,
And
I wrote about this on Dog Post the other day, so these people should be going and checking that out. But I talked about how the value of the SEC championship is being shifted from and obviously it wasn't the case every single year, but being shifted from an entrance game into the playoff to a seeding game.
It will
And
be
it's
a
about
seeding game.
because the SEC champion is going to be one of those top four,
They have to
and
be.
they're going to have a bye.
Yeah. So at this stage, now that we actually only have 4, conferences, they will all get buys, and I will be complaining about that in the future because it's not all the same. I mean, if you win the ACC, that's not the same as winning the SEC. That's not the same as
It's even less the same.
Well, let me ask you this, man. What if Georgia beats the ever-living snot out of Clemson and Clemson wins the ACC and Georgia does not win the SEC championship game? Clemson's going to get a bye even though they have a loss or two.
Is it auto? The conference championship.
If I am not mistaken, it is automatic bid. Yes, correct. Automatic bid for automatic bid for 5 leagues, Ryan. Okay, 4 of the actual conference, and then like Liberty. So if you really wanted Coastal Carolina to get in, yes, they're going to get in and waste all of our times. But whoever does not win the SEC is going to play that stupid game against Liberty or whoever it'll be.
Yeah, someone today was telling me, I wish that they would put 2 group of 5s instead of 1. And I was like, whoa!
No.
Why?
Listen, look, I'm going to lecture just for a second. As a person who played really small sports, we have no business playing the Georgias of the world. It just shouldn't happen. I've actually seen that happen. Coker, where I went, we played Pitt the year they went to the Final Four or the year they went to the Elite Eight. And it was not close. Not close. They were dry humping on the rim and all that stuff. It should not be happening. We need to have real games with real teams. It's great that those kids are competing. It's great that, XYZ is going on. Those kids work. We worked. We should not be playing Georgia. It just should not in a playoff. So, that's got to stop. But, it's what it is. Everybody threw their hands in the air. But I'm really eager to see this thing go. I mean, at this point, Ryan, you've got so many opportunities to steal a line from Nick Saban to make big wins for yourself and get yourself into the playoff. I mean, if Georgia's done what they're supposed to do, I don't by the time they return from Jacksonville, they probably will have won their way into the playoff by then. No matter what, I mean, they can't lose out, but they probably, I think probably if you go 10-2 in this league, you're getting into the playoff.
Yeah, and if you're Georgia going 10-2 in this league, you're going to get in the playoff because brands matter. Let's just.
I mean,
We want to talk about partiality.
12,
there's no partiality. I mean,
you're going to have 12 spots,
yeah.
really 11 spots, excuse me. And of the
11, yeah, that's a better way to put it.
Of the 7 available at-large teams, with the exception of 2016, Georgia would have gotten into a 12-team playoff every single time they've lined up with Kirby Smart.
They would have gotten into a 10-team playoff every single time.
That's true. That's true.
So,
and I will say this too. Probably 12 is too many, but considering what happened this year, it's better than 4.
Should be 8.
It should probably be 8. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I think in that case, it really does need to be the best. But I don't know. I'm seeing a lot of people in the comments, by the way, Ryan, talk about hotels in Austin. There are still hotels in Austin. I booked one a couple. So they're there. Nice. I understand there's an F1 race and all that stuff, but there are
Greater Austin.
There are, yeah. I mean, Austin's not that small. That one event would throw it off. So there are some available hotel rooms if you want to go to Austin. That place seats 100 something. I mean, there's going to be a lot of Georgia people at that game.
Yeah,
that's going to be a very significant test of, but that will probably be the biggest home Texas game since they played Notre Dame a couple years ago. I mean, look at Texas. Yeah, I mean they go.
Colorado Bama last year.
Bama No, that game this past year. You're talking about in
2022 at noon.
Oh, 22 at noon. Yeah. Yeah, that was probably bigger. That's a good question. It was definitely a big game. It will be in that universe. But this is what Texas starts off with. Colorado State, and then they go to Michigan. Texas San Antonio, and then they play Louisiana Monroe, then Mississippi State, and then an off week before they play Oklahoma, and then they got the Dogs. Part of it will depend, man. Are they 5-2 at that point, Ryan? Because if they're 5-2, and Georgia's 6-1, I mean that game's not going to be as what people are hoping it will be.
But that's going to become the reality, right?
It could be 4-2. Texas.
We're going to see more of that than undefeateds maybe now. I mean, it's we have to win 16 games to go undefeated because you'd end up getting that bye. So it'd be 16 instead of 15. I wonder how long it's going to take to see a 16-0 team.
It won't be 16, I don't think.
I think that's the max amount of games.
You're correct. Right? For an undefeated, it will be 16.
Yeah.
You probably are going to have to. You're probably from here on out not going to be able to win the national championship, winning 14 games because you probably won't get in. That would mean you're something like 11-3 to come into the deal. So that would be tricky to do that. I mean, you got finals, semifinals, quarterfinals, first round. So if you do not win your league.
No, it's just
go backwards.
It's just finals, semifinals, first round.
Hold on, no.
Quarterfinals. There's only 3 rounds.
It's 12, right? You've got the finals, semifinals. That's a 4-team playoff, and then you go to an 8-team playoff, and then you go to a 12-team playoff. You got to get to the 8.
Yeah, but the 4 byes.
I get that part, but if you are not a bye, you're playing 5-12. 5-4, 4-1, and then 1-2. Those would be the matchups. If you are not getting the bye, you're playing a 4-game playoff. Now, I went to school in DeKalb County. I will definitely defer to your education on that, but I'm pretty sure I'm right on that front. That's why I count it backwards. Now, if you have the bye, you're only going quarterfinals, semifinals.
Oh, finals. Wow, yeah. No, I was I was envisioning it wrong for some reason.
Well, I do have a master's degree from Georgia
That's
in some
fine.
of these
That's
things,
fine.
some of these math things. So
That's fine. Yeah.
yeah,
I just don't like that it was
in
public.
counting. But I think you better be ready, man. I mean, like you're talking about now, that's 16 games if you don't get the bye. Excuse me, that's 12 plus. Hold on, hold on. You could go 13
Oh,
with the
I
conference
can't believe this
championship.
is all public. Us just struggling with math right now.
Yeah, you could go 13 with the conference championship, and if you do not win that game, you're going to have to play 17 games, man. Because you got the 13 plus the 4,
Yeah.
17 games. I am old enough to remember when we were being lectured about students and how these guys need to be students. They're going to play as many games as the NFL plays in a regular season setting. Is it 17 or 18 in the NFL? Is it 17 now or 18?
It's 17.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you very well could play as many college football games as you play as the NFL. But now the guys are getting paid. I mean, so there's all that. But, look, what do you make of this, Georgia? Let's go to the Georgia schedule one more time here. You got Clemson, Tennessee Tech, at Kentucky, off. Bama, Auburn, State, at Texas, off. Gators, Ole Miss, on the road. Tennessee, UMass, Georgia Tech. Who does Georgia, besides Bama and Texas, need to be the most concerned about in the other 10 games? Because you're going to Kentucky, you're going to Ole Miss, you've got Clemson, the Gators, Auburn, and Tennessee. Like, you can lose those games.
Yeah, I would say at Ole Miss, I guess,
Yeah.
just because that's the tail end of it. You just went and played a big game against Florida. Ole Miss should be a good team. Obviously, in Athens, that wasn't close. It would probably not be that way in Oxford, but I still would expect Georgia to win that game. But that'd be tough.
So,
And they're gonna have Jackson Dart coming back, correct?
I
I mean,
believe
that's
that's
a long
correct.
time.
Yes.
I mean, quarterbacks that have been in the league and have played well for a long time, I mean, they're tough to deal with.
So, here's Ole Miss. They got Furman, Middle Tennessee, at Wake, Georgia Southern, and they got Kentucky. They should win all 5 of those games. They go to South Carolina, they should win that game. That puts them at 6-0 going at LSU. I do not think they'll win that game. 6-1. Open date, they host Oklahoma. What do you think? We give them the win there? 7-1. Go to
For Ole Miss,
Arkansas, 8-1. They host Georgia, 8-2. And then they play the Gators on the road and they play State. They should be a 10-win team again. Ole
Ole
Miss,
Miss has a shot to make the playoff next
they
year.
totally. And that's who Georgia's playing in November.
How many 2-loss SEC teams could sprout?
Well, I would have to legitimately do the math there.
Yeah, I'd have to look
that's
at
a
it.
little harder. That's a little harder. But like when you say undefeated or 2-loss, I mean, I would say Georgia, Bama, Texas are all in the 0 to 1 loss scenario. Certainly 2-loss. That trio would probably get in. After that, I just counted Ole Miss's situation. I don't think Arkansas and Auburn are quite ready. The Gators have a ridiculously difficult schedule. Okay, that's a hard schedule. They should probably beat Miami at home, but that's a tough schedule. Kentucky, I don't know. LSU, you got SC, Nicholls State. You got to go to South Carolina. UCLA, they're playing all the Big Ten schools now. UCLA, South Alabama, week off before Ole Miss. They go to Arkansas. They go to Texas A&M, week off before Bama, and then they close with Florida, Vanderbilt, and Oklahoma. Are they going to play Oklahoma at the end of every year, LSU? That would be odd. It's also odd having an open
does that
date
just turn
on
into
November 16th.
I mean, that could turn into a thing. I could totally see that turning into a thing.
And one other thing here, Ryan, we don't have any guidance on that Friday or Thursday of Thanksgiving. We don't have any guidance. All these games are scheduled for November 30th. So there's no way that ESPN gives away, or Disney, I should say, gives away Thanksgiving night. I mean, that's not a great night for them, but they did. I think they got
The
3
Egg
or
Bowl
4
is still
million.
going to be on Thanksgiving, right? Or
One more time.
is the Egg Bowl going to be on Thanksgiving?
It's not scheduled there yet, but as I was looking at these. I'm a psychopath with these television numbers. Ole Miss and it's Ole Miss State. I don't allow people to talk during that game. It's so stupid. Yeah, I mean they got 2.3 million viewers. That's not great. I do wonder. I don't think this will happen with Georgia and Tech, but I do think someone is going to get moved off of that Saturday. Whether it's Florida State, Florida, Georgia Tech, Mississippi. I mean, like Arkansas and um, Missouri are no longer are no no they are continuing to in the final week of the year is pretty normal, except you've got Oklahoma playing at LSU. So that's a little weird to me. Those two are not rivals. LSU really doesn't have a year-end rival. I mean, I got a buddy here sending me the Florida schedule. This is a disaster. This is a very difficult schedule for the Gators. Miami, Texas A&M, these games are at home, and they go to State. Why are they playing UCF? I know why they did that, but that athletic director, that was a dumb mistake. You have nothing to gain there. They're playing Miami, UCF, and Florida State all in the same. They don't need to be playing those games.
I mean, they could lose the State right there.
You could lose all three of those games. Anyway, they go Miami, Texas A&M, State, UCF, who is not good but still, Tennessee, Kentucky, Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, and Florida State. Their only certain wins here are Samford. That's it. That's the only certain win they've got, Ryan. We're talking about the Florida Gators here.
Yeah, I mean, are things really looking better for next year? It doesn't seem that way. It doesn't seem that way. Those are a lot of players that hit the portal. I mean, you got to be able to keep a culture together to an extent. I know a lot of players are hitting the portal everywhere, but I mean, when you're that early into it, man, and that was a rough year. It's been a rough couple of years. But what you said earlier is probably true. As far as Billy Napier, it was fun to have you at the party for a little bit.
I mean, it was fun while it lasted, man. I mean, like it was fun. I mean, Dan Mullen, they should have. They're everybody who is in this league now is going to be asking a lot of questions about how they got to their head coach and how much longer their head coach is going to be around. Now, I hate to be so dramatic, but if you ain't Kirby or Nick, if that's not your first name, there's going to be people like looking around. You know, think about and maybe not Sark, okay? Because he's on.
He seems to be on the right track. Yeah.
Yeah. So Sark.
It looks like that's a good marriage. Yeah.
But you've got like Brian Kelly. There are going to be people being like, "Hey man, when's this going to happen?"
How long do you give him?
Oh, plenty of time. But
what's plenty of time?
I don't know what plenty of time is.
Because that was year 2.
We're in year 2. We've won the West. We've gotten to the championship game. We've not played a major bowl game yet. But this is
Heisman.
This is not the greatest end of a season ever. I mean, the beginning for LSU is not that bad. SC, Nicholls State, at Carolina, UCLA, South Alabama. They should win all those games. Then they go Ole Miss at Arkansas, A&M, Open, Bama at the Gators, Vanderbilt, and Oklahoma. That close is not easy, man. Even if Florida's not good, that close is not easy. Bama, Florida, Vandy, Oklahoma, that's going to be tough for LSU. So how long do you take? I mean, I don't know. We don't know the answer to these questions yet. That's the problem.
Yeah, no, we don't. Because we don't know how it's all going to. It really is a different college football. It is. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. The actual product on the field going to be much different? No, I think it's still going to be a great product on the field, but everything around it is not the same, and we don't know exactly how it's going to go. We just haven't seen this.
We don't know what we're getting into yet. That's the thing. You realize this time next year, it's the 13th. You realize this weekend, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it's this weekend. Hold on.
There'd be a playoff game in a few days.
There would be a playoff game on like the 16th.
Yeah.
Or the 23rd. I don't know yet. But
I think the 20th is a date.
I believe it's this week. Like so, yeah. Georgia played the SEC championship game. I think they get a week off, and then they would go. Here they are putting it up here. Yeah, they're showing like Georgia to host Ole Miss again in a 4 game, or excuse me, a 12-team playoff. I'm not sure. I think the committee would kind of shake it up a little bit to where
Yeah,
you
exactly.
would
Where
not
you don't
get
see
Penn
that
State,
again.
Ohio State, and Georgia Ole Miss. Like somebody would be swapping there. Probably Penn State and Ole Miss would be swapping to where the Rebels would go to Ole Miss and Penn State would come to get their ass beat in Athens. But with that spark plug of an offense,
Oh man.
I think this. So this
I
is the
oh dude, I seen Drew Aller on early Heisman like odds and stuff.
no.
With what?
I don't know.
With his 1,000 passing yards? Like how many yards did he pass
Not
for?
a lot.
I have to know.
Not a lot. But I think we're getting into December from now on will be a lot more fun than it has been in the past because it won't be about two idiots like me and you talking. It will be people playing, and I hope everybody was having fun at finals because next year that's probably not going to be the case. I mean, these guys are going to have to dealing with graduation and playing and finals, and you're going, that's why winning the league is going to matter a lot. Go ahead.
Oh, I mean, yeah, the thing is the value of winning the league did diminish because you have a shot to win regardless if you are a top team, but it didn't go away. Cutting out that game, cutting out that week of or adding a week of preparation and rest, that's important. That's important. We've seen that over and over in the NFL, how important that is, and that's going to be the same case in college football.
I'm very excited for these 2 bye weeks. Just as an aside, I think they are properly placed
Yeah,
before we
now
go.
there are two breaks.
Well, and it's the Georgia's 2 biggest games are appropriately, the buys are in front of that. Georgia's game of floor is always going to be the biggest game of the year. Doubt me if you'd like, but obviously the other one is Alabama.
I mean, just watch Kirby afterwards.
Yeah, no, that's
To
my point. Yeah, it is the biggest, most
I mean,
emotional
the
game for the
way
league.
the way Kirby reacts kind of tells you the story with these throughout the year.
Correct. Correct.
Auburn
I
and
was a little surprised he wasn't a little jumpier against Tennessee, but he celebrated it a little bit. And they don't act like that when they play at Vanderbilt. They don't act like that, excuse me, when they play at South Carolina or, wherever else in the league. They just don't.
no,
So,
they only act like that for
not at
that
Auburn.
or winning
They
trophies.
don't do
That's
that at Auburn the way they act against Florida.
no, this Auburn game is a little different, just because it was emotional. I think it was a little bit extra juice.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a little bit. But we've entered a really fun time in the SEC. Make sure that you're signing up for our newsletter. The link's down below. We're checking out now. We got a couple more videos to record. Thanks for watching.